All right, y'all, welcome to the show. Holy cow, do we have a lot to get to. So in just a second, we have a report about how Trump's El Salvador prison that he's sending people to and is trying to send Americans to next, it might be a death camp. Serious enough for you yet? Are people waking up to what's happening yet? So we're going to talk about that. We also have AOC surging to be a 2028 leader for president. We have a judge unleashing on Trump's lawless fascism. It looks like in due time there will be contempt of court that happens for the administration, or I should say the regime. Then we'll get to some new polls. Trump is absolutely hemorrhaging support in a record collapse. And in particular, we're talking about independents. Independents are not buying what he's selling, not by a long shot. So we'll dive into that. We have a MAGA senator got pummeled at a town hall by really pissed off voters. You have a CNN host explaining in detailed terms how Trump's tariff scheme is nothing but a massive grab bag of corruption. I have some of the most pathetic media moments I've ever seen in my life. I mean, they are doing everything but sexually pleasing Donald Trump at this point. I'm, of course, referring to the right-wing outlets that he now allows on Air Force One and allows in the press pool. And then later on, this is a great story here, that Dem voters are now honestly having a mass awakening and abandoning centrism at a record clip. So we have the numbers to back that up. There's a lot to say about that. You guys know the drill. Everybody do me a big favor and please subscribe to the channel. That helps out massively and costs you nothing at all. And of course, this show wouldn't be able to do what it does without you guys supporting on Patreon. Thank you to everybody who donates $2 a month or $5 a month or whatever it is. Look, this is real independent media. It's that simple. I've never talked to an advertiser. And in order for media like this to flourish, it needs small dollar support, basically grassroots funded media. So again, much love, thanks, and appreciation to all of you. It means the world. All right, let's go ahead and dive into it, man. This stuff is serious, dog. This stuff is serious. So, as you all know, Trump has been illegally rounding up people in this country and shipping them off to an El Salvador mega prison with no hearings, no due process. They try to rush the process, and then once they shove them on a jet and get them over international waters, they look at the course and they go, tee-hee-hee, you have no jurisdiction over there because we declare that that's the case. Therefore, fuck off. This is now a foreign policy matter, and the executive branch has sole discretion on foreign policy matters. This is their dodge. Now, needless to say, it is wildly illegal in multiple ways, and all the courts that are looking at it are saying the same thing. Even Trump-appointed judges are going, hey, dog, pump your brakes. Now, having said that, there's this specific case that we've been talking about, Kilmar Abrego Garcia. And this poor guy never committed a crime in any country he's ever been in. He takes care of multiple special needs kids. He has legal protection from deportation. And the administration initially admitted, oh yeah, we sent this guy there in error. It was an administrative error. So you have a totally innocent man, no hearing, shipped to an El Salvador slave labor gulag. And then the Trump regime started playing games. When the media highlighted this and started asking the regime about it, the reaction was, I don't really know what you're talking about. This guy's an MS-13 gang member. He's a terrorist. We don't want him here. I don't know what you're talking about. Nayib Bukele said, look, I don't have the authority to bring this guy back. I'm not going to smuggle a terrorist into the United States. So the Supreme Court says, hey, you have to facilitate this guy's return. That's what they say. Then Trump says, and Stephen Miller, his Goebbels, says, the Supreme Court didn't say that. The Supreme Court actually said that we were right about everything. What? Just brazenly lying. And then you have Bukele saying, I can't send him back. I don't have the authority. And the regime saying, we don't have the authority to send him back, nor would we even want to. And so here we are. To call it a constitutional crisis is the understatement of the century, dog. I mean, we are so far above and beyond. As many people have been pointing out, if you want to talk about a slippery slope towards fascism, we are not on the slope. We are at the bottom of that bitch. You understand? So, having said all that, why? Why are they being so weird around Kilmar Abrego Garcia? Because early on in the process, by the way, when we started shipping people to El Salvador illegally, there was one plane that had 8 or 9 women on it. Bukele took a look, realized there were 8 or 9 women that Trump wanted him to lock up and throw away the key. And Bukele goes, turn that plane around. We're not accepting women. This happened a few weeks ago. So hold on. You're telling me, oh, we don't have the authority to release anybody, but you already released multiple people. The difference is those women never got in CECOT. They famously said about CECOT, the El Salvador mega prison, nobody gets out of this place. Nobody gets out of this place. What? And so now Kilmar Abrego Garcia, we know he's there, but they're playing games, which begs the question, why are you playing games? Is he not alive anymore? This is a serious question now people have to ask. They're being incredibly weird and evasive around this case. I understand they're fascists. I understand they're irrational. I understand they always lie through their teeth. They lie like they breathe. I get all of that. But there is next level weirdness around this. And many people have speculated, we don't even know if this guy's alive. There's zero evidence of him continuing to be alive, a totally innocent man who was shipped to a gulag. So now people on social media, the investigators on social media have decided, let's do a little bit of digging around this CECOT place. And what they found is immensely disturbing. I'm going to warn you up front, this is genuinely hard to watch. So let's watch one of these investigations that this woman posted on TikTok, then I'll give you some more information. Here we go.
As promised earlier, let's get into a deep dive of the terrorist confinement center in El Salvador, where people are being deported from the United States without due process. This is an aerial view of the terrorism confinement center located in Tecoluca, El Salvador. It's often referred to as just CECOT as an abbreviation, so that's what we'll be calling it. It officially opened in January of 2023 when El Salvador's president was doing a major crackdown on gang violence and just violence in general throughout the country of El Salvador. As a result, obviously, this is a maximum security prison, and as it holds up to 40,000 inmates, it's one of the largest in Latin America. Just looking at this aerial view, you see that there are 8 cell blocks or pavilions, as they are sometimes referred to. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is going to be important later. Now, each cell within each of these cell blocks can accommodate 65 to 70 inmates, as we've seen in the pictures that look like this. So you've probably seen this on the news already. This should not be new information, but this is one of those cells of many cells in each of those cell blocks. Again, each cell accommodating 65 to 70 inmates. CECOT has also been a central focus of many human rights organizations around the world, as basic human needs and care are not met in this facility. They truly treat these individuals like animals, packing them quite literally to the rafters. No blankets, no pillows, no going outside, no access to medical care, no rehabilitation programs to try and make these people better humans in general, no education, nothing.
So this would, if this was in the US, this would violate your protection from cruel and unusual punishment. This is effectively like torturing all of these people. That's what this is. It's fair to call this a torture dungeon or a slave labor camp. And this is where innocent people from the US are being sent with zero due process.
Clearly, overcrowding is a major issue, and I can only imagine how much worse it has gotten as the United States to continue to send people to this facility without due process. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that everyone located in this facility is innocent or is not a member of a gang. That's probably not true. But I know for a fact there's a ton of people in there who at least have not even had their due process or their day in court. And looking at those images is only reflective of this to me. That is 1930s Germany, let's just say. As we look further into the Google Earth images I'm about to show you, this might not be where the parallels end between 1930s Germany and CECOT. Let's go back to this image for a second. I did a ton of research last night, literally was up till like 4 a.m, trying to find information on blueprints or who built this place or anything at all to kind of figure out what these other buildings on the campus are over here, as well as this one and this one. So we know that these are the different cell blocks, those 8 buildings that look symmetrical. And this, I believe, is where the employees enter. On the other side of this dot, there's a parking lot. So this would be administrative buildings as well as break rooms for the employees, as well as I do know that there is a confirmed gym for employees on property. Now, the whole campus is covered in gravel as a way to amplify the sound of any footsteps of would-be escaping prisoners. So this is where I start to ask a lot of questions, because we know that all of this area at the front is administrative, processing, the parking lot, employee use. We see that there is a separation there. We also know that there are 8 identical cell blocks, and then we also have nothing in between. Again, this is completely covered in gravel. Nobody goes outside. There is no yard. There is no walking across campus to go to a meal, nothing. which leaves these two buildings in the middle, this larger one and then this small one that includes a small yard. Let me show you some other angles before we do a deeper dive. So this time we have the entrance to the property here. You see all of that employee use, administrative, whatever else, laundry, I don't know. And then you have the separation followed by the 8 cell blocks and then these two facilities over here, whatever they are. And another from the other end of the property. There's the cell blocks, again, that middle portion. Back to our aerial view. This is a close-up of this little building with the yard. And this is that larger one. So those two buildings that are central to the campus. As you can see, there's just these, I don't know, 2 shelters, basically 2 buildings. And then this empty yard, which clearly is not used for anything like exercise. Nothing is stored there. It's very out of place. This image is fresh from its opening. This is what it looked like. And now, trigger warning, the next image I'm going to show you is highly graphic. This is the Google Earth image I pulled today. Today is Sunday, April 13th, 2025. And as you can see, there are some major changes at this point. In between these two buildings, which are centrally located again in the middle of the campus, gone is the grass here. In fact, there seems to be a lot of, pavement or tar or something, as well as these very strange diagonal lines between the two parts of the property. You also see that this is now all paved over or graveled over. There is no grass where there once was. And most concerning of all, we see these very distinct Merlot colored splashes or stains on this part of the property. A large one here as well as some over here. Now there is controversy on the internet that this might be a pile of human bodies. I've taken this picture 7 different ways to Sunday and put it into different various platforms, trying to get the contrast to show me something, trying to get the sharpness to show me something. I have played with this image and I cannot make it any more clear. So that is where we are in terms of the debate, but I think I have some evidence to back up that this could in fact be a shower situation, much like the 1930s Germany situation. Both in combing through the internet and even using various AI platforms to ask questions about this place, I have not been able to find anything about the blueprints to this facility. But I did find that there are 3 construction companies that were contracted out to help build this facility. 2 of the 3 are listed as just building infrastructure. We're talking roads, we're talking the outside structures of buildings, but there was one that caught my eye. Inversiones Omni, OMNI, is a construction company that is contracted often in El Salvador to build medical facilities. And in 2022, they helped to build and open the Chivo Pets Veterinary Hospital. Specifically, it opened on February 26, 2024. Obviously, things didn't end well for them, but it was the first public veterinary hospital offering affordable and comprehensive medical care for pets. Services included everything from basic consultations to emergency care to surgeries, hospitalizations, rehab, radiology, etc. My question is this. As a pet owner, I know that unfortunately sometimes you take your sick pet to the vet and things don't work out, or there are surgeries in which the animal does not survive. And what do we need in order to properly send home the ashes of a pet to their owner? A crematorium of some kind? Is it possible that this specific construction company was able to replicate this on a larger scale? I say yes.
I got more pictures of that area that she's referring to there. You tell me what that looks like to you. You tell me what that looks like to you. Do I even need to do any commentary here? What does that look like to you? Look at this one. Look at this picture. Why have they repeated that if you go into CECOT, you never get out? What does that mean? So what we're talking about here is an extrajudicial prison outside the bounds of the law. And they say, once you go in, you never leave. If words have meaning, if words have definitions, that would be called a death camp. That would be called a death camp. In fact, that was one of the defining characteristics of a concentration camp, is that it's outside the bounds of the law and you're sent there with no due process. Well, that's literally exactly what we're talking about here And then, like I said, you also have them admitting once somebody gets into CECOT, they never get out. And this might also be, so we don't even know Kilmar Abrego Garcia is alive. And if he is alive, one of the reasons why they're being so weird about this and they're insisting they didn't make a mistake, even though everybody knows they made a mistake in sending this guy because he's totally innocent, why would they do that? They know if he gets out, he's going to explain, hey, here's what it's like in there. Here's what's going on. Here's the human rights abuses. Here's how people are tortured. I mean, they record pictures of when they bring you in there, they shave your fucking head. They shave your head. Again, what does that sound like? What does that sound like to you? I believe the exact number was 238 people were initially sent there by the United States of America. You've had at least 2 analyses done of the people who were sent. According to one analysis, 75% of the people sent there are totally innocent of any wrongdoing, never committed a crime. 75%. That's the low number. That's the more conservative number. The higher number is, and I believe, what was this? Bloomberg did this analysis, I think. Was it Reuters or Bloomberg? It was 90%, they say, are people with no criminal record whatsoever. And then in the first analysis, they said, of the people who have criminal records, most of them are nonviolent. Most of them are nonviolent. Usually, if you're going to do a fascist takeover like this, usually the leaders are competent enough and intelligent enough to say, hey, go after the targets that people don't give a fuck about first, right? Find some actual gangbanger who's committed murder, violent criminal gang member, and there's zero doubt that this is what that person is. You start with somebody like that to soften the population into thinking, hey man, they're only doing it to the worst of the worst, so is it really all that bad? But they are so incompetent, so unintelligent, and so flat out evil. 75 to 90% of the people they sent this place have no criminal record. And by the way, let me be clear. Even if they did have a criminal record, this is still wildly illegal, wildly unconstitutional, a violation of human rights, a violation of of international laws. I mean, this is not a close case. This is not close. And perhaps that's why they're being so touchy about Kilmar Abrego Garcia, and they're continuing to lie about him and call him a terrorist and call him an MS-13 gang member and lie that he was convicted in court as such, which is a complete fabrication. Maybe the reason they're doing it is because there's a death camp. He could be dead. And if he's not dead, he has fucking horror stories from coming out of this place. And it would blow the lid off the whole fucking thing. And by the way, even with court saying, hey, you can't do this. Hey, you got to send him back. You got to facilitate his return. You got to give these people due process. Even as the courts are saying that, we just covered the other day, they sent another 10 people to this place. We also covered, there's another nightmare story. DHS rounded up a 19-year-old. When they were rounding this person up, they go, oh, this isn't the right guy. And then they say, take him anyway. And now this person's getting shipped to a fucking potential death camp. Death camp. Death camp. So I just want everybody to take note of this, right? Because all along, so many people were gaslighting us and trying to get everybody to calm down. Oh, you're being hyperbolic. You're being extreme. You don't know what you're talking about. But all of the evidence was there. This was the makings of a historically evil regime, and now it's all coming to fruition. And not only that, it's happening lightning quick. Lightning quick. So everybody's got to wake up and see what's going on here. By the way, I'm actually heartened at the fact that this story has mega blown up, right? And, you know, I feel horrible for like the gay makeup artist whose story also should have massively blown up, or the guy who's got the autism awareness tattoo for his 15-year-old autistic brother who was sent there. So many innocent people, human beings with real lives, real stories. I feel so bad that it's only Kilmar Abrego Garcia getting the media attention at this level. But it's also heartening to see that people are genuinely and sincerely taking this story seriously, including the Supreme Court, including Democratic politicians, including the mainstream media. I had on MSNBC the other day, and they were doing basically hours and hours of coverage of this exact story, explaining how authoritarian and extremist and fascist this is from this government. And then final point, I wanted to show you guys this. So Chris Van Hollen is the Democratic senator from the state of Maryland. And he came out the other day and he said, look, I wanted a meeting with Bukele when he came to the U.S. He didn't do a meeting with me. So I'm going to go ahead and go to El Salvador. I'm going to El Salvador and I'm going to check on Kilmar Abrego Garcia. And I'm going to let him know that people are fighting and we're getting him out. So this is amazing. Then Maxwell Frost came out and said, we're going to join you. Cory Booker came out and said, we want to come too. And so now you get all these Democratic politicians that are going, yeah, we should all go. We should all go. Now, the terrifying angle to this is, do you guys remember, I don't know how many of you have seen documentaries on this, but Jim Jones' cult? Jim Jones, he bought like this property in Guyana and made a camp. And that saying, oh, they drink the Kool-Aid, that comes from Jim Jones' cult because he basically had a death cult and a lot of people committed suicide when he spiked their Kool-Aid and everybody drank it and killed themselves at once, right? But people were, what was it called, like the People's Temple or something like that? People were saying leading up to it, this guy's not right, this guy's kind of crazy, this looks like a cult, this is going to end a disaster. And so you had a U.S. congressperson travel to Guyana in order to like, hey, let me check this out. Let me make sure my constituents are okay. The people who I know from my district who are in this place. So he goes there and they put on their little show to make it look like everything is cool. And then as he's leaving, they fucking chase him down and kill him, murder him. So he was on to how fishy everything was and that something wasn't quite right here. As he was trying to get to his plane, they literally murdered him. So this is a very famous story. I don't remember the name of the politician, but you go look it up. The Jim Jones cult. Go read Jonestown. It was called. Go read about what happened to that congressman who was killed. It's crazy. It's crazy. And Chris Van Hollen is doing this knowing, hey, this might not end well. We are dealing with a fascist Trump regime and a fascist Nayib Bukele, and they're clearly working overtime and working really hard to try to hide exactly what goes on at CECOT. And he's just showing up at their doorstep like, hey, dog, I got a constituent I got to worry about. You need to show me him. So this is genuinely one of the most heroic things I've seen in my life in regards to a politician standing up. So here's what he said. This is actually from, maybe not even 20 minutes ago. Here we go.
I just landed at the airport in San Salvador a little while ago. I'm now en route into the city, looking forward to meeting with the team from the American Embassy. And I do want to thank our Foreign Service officers and the whole team at this embassy and embassies around the world for all the good work they do on behalf of our country. I'm proud to co-chair the bipartisan Foreign Service Caucus that stands up for the men and women who are serving our country overseas and at home in the State Department. After that, I hope to meet with some high-level government officials from El Salvador. As I've said before, the goal of my visit is to talk to people here about the release of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. I told his wife and his family I would do everything possible to bring him home, and we're going to keep working at this until we're successful. I also hope to have the chance to meet with him, but we'll have a better idea if that works out a little later on.
I know I say this every show now, but you're living through history. And you're living through a dark, ugly, disturbing period of history, a horrifying period of history. And everybody of good conscience needs to stand up, tell the truth unabashedly, protest, make your voice heard, be clear, be on the record, because there's going to come a time when your grandkids ask you, hey, what the fuck were you doing when you were basically living in the new Nazi Germany? What were you doing? You got to have a good answer for that question. So as I just walked you through, this CECOT El Salvador slave labor gulag, perhaps I've been underselling it by calling it a slave labor gulag. Perhaps the real term, if this picture means what it may mean just at the plain face reading of it, perhaps the real term is a concentration camp or it's a death camp. Hey y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.